Marcus wiped the sweat from his weathered hands as he stood before the imposing mahogany door of the Pemberton estate. His toolkit felt heavier than usual, weighted down by 30 consecutive rejections from the wealthy women of Hillcrest Heights. Each dismissal had been swift, brutal, and humiliating. The morning sun cast long shadows across the manicured lawn as he pressed the ornate doorbell. Inside, classical music played softly. Marcus straightened his worn flannel shirt and tried to summon what remained of his confidence. When the door opened, he expected another haughty socialite to look down her nose at him. Instead, he found himself face to face with Eleanor Hartwell, a woman in her early 50s whose silver hair framed kind blue eyes. She wore simple clothes, jeans and a cotton sweater that seemed oddly out of place in this mansion. "You must be the handyman," she said, her voice carrying a warmth he hadn't heard in weeks. "I'm Eleanor. Please come in." As Marcus stepped inside, he noticed the house felt different from the others. While expensive artwork adorned the walls and crystal chandeliers hung from the ceiling, there was something lived-in about the space. Books lay open on coffee tables, and a half-finished crossword puzzle sat beside a cup of tea. "I know this might sound presumptuous," Eleanor said, leading him toward the kitchen, "but you look like you could use some coffee before we discuss the work." For the first time in 30 attempts, Marcus felt something he'd almost forgotten: hope. The kitchen smelled of cinnamon and freshly brewed coffee. Eleanor gestured for Marcus to sit at the breakfast nook while she poured 2 steaming mugs. He noticed her hands. They weren't the soft, manicured hands of the other wealthy women he'd encountered. These hands showed the subtle signs of someone who wasn't afraid of work. "Sugar? Cream?" she asked, settling across from him. "Black is fine, ma'am." "Please call me Eleanor." She smiled. "I've been widowed for 6 months now, and I'm still getting used to running this place alone. My late husband Richard handled all the maintenance issues." Marcus sipped his coffee, studying Eleanor's face. There was sadness there, but also strength. Unlike the other women who had turned him away without a second glance, she seemed genuinely interested in hearing what he had to offer. "The previous handymen Richard hired were..." She paused diplomatically. "Let's say they took advantage of his trust. Overcharged, did shoddy work, disappeared for weeks at a time. I need someone reliable." "I understand completely," Marcus replied. "What kind of work are we talking about?" Eleanor pulled out a handwritten list. "The guest bathroom faucet drips constantly. 3 ceiling fans make terrible grinding noises. The garden shed door won't close properly. And there's something wrong with the pool filter system. The water's been cloudy for weeks." As she spoke, Marcus found himself relaxing for the first time in months. This wasn't about charity or pity. Eleanor needed help, and he could provide it. It was that simple. "When would you like me to start?" Marcus arrived at 7:30 sharp the next morning, his truck loaded with tools and replacement parts he'd purchased with his last $100. Eleanor greeted him at the door with another cup of coffee and a warm smile. "I have to admit," she said, walking him to the guest bathroom, "I called 3 of your references yesterday. They all said the same thing. You're honest, thorough, and fair with your prices." The bathroom faucet was indeed a mess. Marcus quickly diagnosed the problem: a corroded cartridge that previous handymen had simply ignored, instead applying temporary fixes that made the situation worse. Within an hour, he had the faucet completely rebuilt and functioning perfectly. Eleanor appeared in the doorway as he was cleaning up. "That's incredible. The last man who looked at this said I needed to replace the entire fixture for $800. Just needed the right parts," Marcus said, packing his tools. "This should last you another 20 years. As they moved to the ceiling fans, Eleanor began sharing stories about the house. She and Richard had bought it 15 years ago when his tech company went public. They'd planned to travel the world together once he retired, but cancer had other plans. "I keep thinking I should sell," she said, watching Marcus expertly balance the first fan. "It's too big for one person, but Richard loved this place so much." Marcus paused in his work, understanding more than Eleanor realized. He'd lost his own dreams when his construction business failed 3 years ago, leaving him scrambling for handyman jobs to pay the bills. "Sometimes," he said quietly, "the right person comes along to help us see possibilities we couldn't see before." By the end of the first week, Marcus had completed every item on Eleanor's list and identified a dozen other issues the house needed addressed. More importantly, their morning coffee conversations had become the highlight of both their days. "You know," Eleanor said, buttering a piece of homemade banana bread, "I haven't laughed this much since Richard died." Marcus smiled, accepting the offered slice. "You make it easy to be around, Eleanor. You treat me like a person, not just hired help." She looked surprised. "Why would I treat you any differently?" "Because most people in your position do." Marcus's voice carried the weight of 30 rejections. "Last month, Mrs. Pemberton wouldn't even let me in her house, said I looked untrustworthy. Mrs. Wellington made me enter through the servants' entrance and wouldn't allow me to use her bathroom during an 8-hour job." Eleanor's expression hardened. "That's absolutely inexcusable." "I'm used to it," Marcus shrugged, "but it doesn't make it easier." "Well, you'll never experience that here." Eleanor's voice was firm. "This is your house too, for as long as you're working here." That afternoon, while installing new outdoor lighting, Marcus noticed Eleanor in her garden. She was struggling to lift a heavy planter, clearly frustrated by her inability to manage tasks that Richard had once handled. Without being asked, Marcus set down his tools and helped her move the entire arrangement. "Thank you," she said breathlessly. "I hate feeling so helpless with these things." "You're not helpless," Marcus replied. "You're just learning to do things differently." As he returned to his work, Marcus realized something had shifted between them. This was no longer just a job. It was becoming something deeper. The following Monday brought rain, forcing Marcus to work inside. Eleanor found him in Richard's former study, carefully repairing a built-in bookshelf that had started to sag under the weight of engineering texts and business journals. "Richard would have loved watching you work," she said, settling into a leather armchair. "He was always fascinated by craftsmanship." Marcus looked up from his precise measurements. "What did he do exactly?" "Software development, then venture capital. He had a gift for seeing potential in things others overlooked." Eleanor's eyes grew distant. "Including me." "What do you mean?" "I was a high school teacher when we met. Hardly the typical wife for a tech mogul. His friends thought he was crazy, marrying someone so ordinary." She laughed softly. "But Richard saw something in me that I couldn't see in myself." Marcus carefully adjusted the shelf bracket, thinking about her words. "And now?" "Now I'm trying to figure out who I am without him." Eleanor stood and moved to the window, watching the rain streak down the glass. "Everyone expects me to maintain his social circle, continue his charitable commitments, live the life he built. But I'm not sure that's who I really am." "Who do you want to be?" Marcus asked. The question hung in the air between them. Eleanor turned from the window, studying Marcus as he worked. There was something about his quiet confidence, his genuine interest in her thoughts, that made her feel safe enough to be honest. "I want to be someone who matters," she said finally. "Not because of my bank account or my husband's legacy, but because of something I built myself." 3 weeks into the job, Marcus had transformed the Hartwell estate. Every faucet worked perfectly, the ceiling fans hummed quietly, and the pool sparkled crystal clear. But more than that, he had brought life back to a house that had felt empty and cold. Eleanor found him in the garage, organizing tools after replacing the garage door opener. "I have a proposition for you," she said, her voice unusually formal. Marcus set down his wrench, giving her his full attention. "I've been thinking about what you said, about finding my own purpose. And I've been watching how you work, how you take pride in fixing things that others have given up on." Eleanor took a deep breath. "I want to start a business." "What kind of business?" "A home restoration company that specializes in helping people, especially women like me who've been left to manage properties they don't understand. We'd focus on honest work, fair prices, and treating every client with respect." Marcus stared at her, hardly believing what he was hearing. "Are you offering me a job? I'm offering you a partnership." Eleanor's eyes were bright with excitement. "You have the skills and experience. I have the capital and business connections. Together we could build something meaningful." "Eleanor, Marcus struggled to find words. "I don't have anything to bring to a partnership. My credit is shot, my reputation in this town is non-existent, and I've been barely scraping by for years." "You have integrity," Eleanor said firmly. "You have compassion. You have the ability to see solutions where others see only problems, and you make me feel like I can do anything." The garage fell silent, except for the sound of rain on the roof. Marcus realized this was more than a business proposition. It was Eleanor's way of saying she believed in him when no one else would. 2 months later, Hartwell and Associates Home Restoration had its first client, Margaret Chen, a recently divorced teacher who had inherited her grandmother's Victorian house in the historical district. The property was beautiful, but had been neglected for years, and Margaret couldn't afford the astronomical estimates other contractors had given her. Eleanor and Marcus arrived together, and Marcus immediately noticed how Eleanor's presence changed the dynamic. Where he might have been dismissed or overcharged, Eleanor's reputation opened doors and commanded respect. "The roof leaks in 3 places," Margaret explained, leading them through the house. "The electrical system is probably from the 1960s, and don't even get me started on the plumbing." Marcus surveyed the damage while Eleanor took detailed notes. They worked as a seamless team, Eleanor handling the client relationship and project management, while Marcus assessed the technical challenges. "Here's what I think," Marcus said, joining the women in the living room. "This house has good bones, but it needs systematic work. If we try to do everything at once, the cost will be overwhelming. Instead, let's prioritize by safety and livability, then tackle the cosmetic improvements as your budget allows." Margaret's relief was visible. "The last contractor told me I needed to gut the entire house." "That's because he was looking at this as a flip property," Eleanor explained. "We understand this is your home." Over the next hour, they developed a phased restoration plan that would bring the house up to modern standards without breaking Margaret's budget. More importantly, Marcus felt something he hadn't experienced in years: pride in his work and excitement about the future. Within 6 months, Hartwell and Associates had completed 12 projects, each one building their reputation in the community. Word spread quickly about the company that actually listened to clients and delivered quality work at fair prices. Marcus found himself managing a small crew of skilled tradesmen who shared his values of craftsmanship and integrity. Eleanor had proven to be a natural businesswoman, handling everything from client relations to project scheduling with remarkable efficiency. "I never imagined I'd be good at this," she confessed one evening, as they reviewed the week's progress in the study that had become their unofficial office. "Richard saw it in you," Marcus replied, updating their project timeline. "Just like you saw potential in me when everyone else had written me off." Their partnership had evolved into something deeper than business. They anticipated each other's thoughts, covered each other's weaknesses, and celebrated each other's successes. The house that had once felt too large and empty for Eleanor now buzzed with purposeful activity, but their success hadn't gone unnoticed by the wealthy social circle Eleanor had been trying to distance herself from. Darling, surely you're not seriously planning to continue this little hobby indefinitely, Victoria Pemberton said during a charity luncheon Eleanor had reluctantly attended. Richard left you well provided for. There's no need for you to work, especially with that sort of person. Eleanor's jaw tightened. Marcus is my business partner, Victoria, and yes, I plan to continue this little hobby indefinitely. But Eleanor, think about your position in the community, your reputation. What would Richard say? Richard would be proud of me for building something meaningful instead of just spending his money. The social pressure intensified as Eleanor's business grew. Old friends began excluding her from events, and several prominent families who might have been clients chose other contractors, citing concerns about her associates. Marcus noticed Eleanor's frustration during their morning coffee routine, which had become sacred to both of them. Maybe they're right, Eleanor said, staring into her mug. Maybe I'm being selfish, dragging you into my problems with the social elite. Eleanor, look at me. Marcus waited until she met his eyes. In 6 months, we've helped dozens of families improve their homes and their lives. We've created jobs for good people. We've built something honest and valuable. How is that selfish? But I'm costing you clients. These people have money and influence. These people, Marcus interrupted gently, are the same ones who rejected me 30 times before I knocked on your door. I don't want their business if it comes with conditions about who I can partner with. Eleanor studied his face, seeing the quiet determination that had first attracted her to him as a business partner. You really don't care what they think, do you? I care what you think. I care what our clients think. I care about the work we do and the way we do it. Marcus leaned forward. Eleanor, 6 months ago, I was broke, desperate, and convinced I was a failure. You didn't just give me a job, you gave me back my self-respect. Don't let these people take that away from either of us. That afternoon, Eleanor made a decision that would change everything. She called Victoria Pemberton and declined her invitation to join the country club board, effectively severing her ties with Hillcrest Heights' social elite. Their biggest project yet came from an unexpected source: the Riverside Community Center, which served low-income families in the older part of town. The building was in desperate need of renovation, but their budget was almost non-existent. We can't do it for free, Marcus explained to Eleanor as they walked through the run-down facility. We have employees to pay and our own bills to cover. I know, Eleanor replied, watching children play in a room with peeling paint and flickering lights. But maybe we can find a way to make it work. The solution came to Eleanor that night. She approached Marcus the next morning with a proposal that took his breath away. What if we donated half our normal fee and organized volunteer work days? The community provides labor, we provide expertise and materials at cost. Eleanor, that would eat up most of our profit from the Chen project. Marcus, when I married Richard, I inherited more money than I could spend in 3 lifetimes. I've been trying to figure out what to do with it that would actually matter. This matters. Over the next 3 months, Hartwell and Associates transformed the community center. Local families volunteered weekends and evenings, working alongside Marcus's crew to rebuild their children's safe haven. Eleanor coordinated everything from supply deliveries to volunteer schedules, discovering leadership skills she never knew she possessed. The project attracted local media attention, which brought both new clients and harsh criticism from Eleanor's former social circle. But as Marcus watched her teach a 10-year-old girl how to paint trim work, he knew Eleanor had found her true calling. The completion of the community center project brought an unexpected invitation. The mayor asked Hartwell and Associates to bid on the restoration of the historic City Hall. It would be their largest contract yet, but it also meant increased scrutiny from the city council, several of whom belonged to Eleanor's former social circle. Are you sure you want to do this? Marcus asked as they prepared their presentation. "It's going to put us under a microscope." Eleanor looked up from the detailed plans they'd spent weeks developing. "Marcus, can I ask you something personal?" "Of course." "When you lost your construction business, did you ever think about giving up entirely?" Marcus set down his calculator, understanding this was about more than just the City Hall project. "Every day for about 6 months. I'd wake up feeling like a complete failure, wondering if I should just find some mindless job and accept that I'd never amount to anything. What changed? Meeting you." Marcus's honesty surprised them both. "You looked at me and saw potential instead of failure. You gave me a chance to be more than I thought I could be." Eleanor was quiet for a long moment. "That's exactly how Richard made me feel 20 years ago. And it's how you make me feel now." The words hung between them, carrying implications neither was quite ready to address directly, but as they returned to their work, both understood that their partnership had evolved far beyond business. "We're going to win this bid," Eleanor said with quiet confidence. "How can you be so sure?" "Because we're not just selling a service, we're offering the city something real and lasting, and people recognize authenticity when they see it." The city council chamber was packed with contractors, city officials, and curious residents. Eleanor and Marcus sat at the presentation table facing a panel of 5 council members, 3 of whom Eleanor knew from her previous life in high society. "Hartwell and Associates," announced Mayor Patterson, "you have 30 minutes to present your proposal for the City Hall restoration project." Eleanor stood, her presentation folder perfectly organized, her voice steady despite the dozens of eyes watching her every move. "Council members, residents of our city, thank you for this opportunity. 6 months ago, if someone had told me I'd be standing here proposing to restore our most important civic building, I would have laughed. But I've learned that life has a way of revealing capabilities we never knew we possessed." As Eleanor spoke about their vision for the project, Marcus watched the faces around the room. Some showed skepticism, others curiosity, but most reflected genuine interest in what she was saying. "Our approach is based on 3 principles," Eleanor continued. "First, historical integrity. We will restore this building to its original grandeur while incorporating necessary modern systems. Second, community involvement. Like our recent community center project, we believe the people who use this building should be part of bringing it back to life. And third, long-term value. We're not looking for the biggest profit margin, but for the opportunity to create something lasting." When Eleanor finished, Marcus stood to present the technical details. Gone was the nervous handyman who had stood on Eleanor's doorstep 8 months ago. In his place was a confident professional who spoke with authority about structural engineering, historical preservation techniques, and project management. "Questions?" Eleanor asked as they concluded. Councilwoman Henderson, one of Eleanor's former friends, leaned forward. "Mrs. Hartwell, this is all very inspiring, but do you and Mr. No, she paused, making a show of checking her notes. "Marcus actually have the experience to handle a project of this magnitude?" The question sparked a tense 15 minutes of grilling from the council. Eleanor handled each challenge with grace and facts, while Marcus provided detailed technical responses that demonstrated their competence. But the underlying message was clear. Some council members doubted whether a society widow and her handyman could handle such an important project. "I think we've heard enough," announced Councilman Bradley, another member of Eleanor's former social circle. "We'll deliberate and announce our decision next week." As the crowd dispersed, Eleanor and Marcus packed their materials in silence. They had presented their best case, but the politics of the situation were obvious. "That was brutal," Marcus said as they walked to the parking lot. "They're not questioning our qualifications," Eleanor replied. "They're questioning whether I have the right to reinvent myself. and whether you deserve to be taken seriously as my equal partner. Are you having second thoughts?" Eleanor stopped walking and turned to face him. "Marcus, before I met you, I was slowly disappearing into grief and emptiness. Richard's friends wanted me to become a decorative widow who wrote checks and attended galas. You helped me discover I could be so much more. Eleanor, let me finish." Her voice was firm but warm. "Whether we win this contract or not, we've already succeeded. We've built something meaningful together. We've helped people. We've proven that respect and integrity matter more than social status or connections." The next week stretched endlessly. Eleanor and Marcus continued their regular work, but the City Hall decision loomed over everything. Then, on Friday afternoon, Mayor Patterson called. "Mrs. Hartwell, I have news about the City Hall project." Eleanor put the phone on speaker so Marcus could hear. The council vote was 4-1 in favor of Hartwell and Associates. Congratulations. 1 year after Marcus had knocked on Eleanor's door as a desperate, rejected handyman, he stood with her in the fully restored City Hall rotunda, watching hundreds of community members tour their completed work. The building gleamed with renewed purpose, its historical character preserved while modern functionality had been seamlessly integrated. "I can't believe we actually did this," Eleanor whispered, her hand finding Marcus's in the crowd. "We did more than this," Marcus replied, squeezing her fingers gently. "We proved that second chances can change everything." The past year had transformed both of their lives in ways they never could have imagined. Hartwell and Associates was now the most respected restoration company in the region, with a waiting list of clients who valued their combination of quality work and genuine care. More importantly, Eleanor and Marcus had discovered that their partnership extended far beyond business. "There's something I need to tell you," Eleanor said, as the crowd began to thin. "What's that?" "I'm not the same person who opened that door to you 12 months ago. You didn't just help me start a business, you helped me find myself." Marcus smiled, understanding exactly what she meant. "You saved me too, Eleanor. I was about to give up on everything when you said yes." As they stood together in the restored heart of their community, surrounded by the fruits of their labor and the respect they had earned, both Eleanor and Marcus realized their story was just beginning. They had proven that rejection and loss could become the foundation for something extraordinary, and that sometimes the most unexpected partnerships create the most beautiful results. Outside, the setting sun cast golden light through the restored stained glass windows, illuminating their faces with the warm glow of a future full of endless possibilities. Thank you so much for listening to our story about Eleanor and Marcus. We hope their journey of second chances, unexpected partnerships, and finding love through mutual respect has touched your heart as much as it touched ours while writing it. Please take a moment to let us know in the comments where you're listening from around the world. We love connecting with our audience and learning about the diverse places our stories reach. Your support and engagement mean everything to us, and we can't wait to share more inspiring tales with you soon.